Double standards have always existed within the music industry. We still see them to this day, and we saw them long ago throughout different decades. But what exactly is a doubled standard as it pertains to this context? To be forward, male artists seem to be able to curate careers and avoid minimal conflict within the public eye. Female artists, on the other hand, seem to always have to navigate a minefield with every decision they make. It doesn't go unnoticed how the headlines are constantly populated with news about these women, from their image to their body to their music, relationships, and everything else in between. What I hope to explore is clear examples of double standards within the music industry to bring more light to them. We can also try and decipher why these still exist. Do they boil down to just one simple explanation? As we continue, let me know why you think women have such a different set of standards within the music industry, and if these expectations are created by the audience or by the music label. Of course, I don't want anything said to be defined as the absolute case for absolutely everything in the industry. Nothing is applicable to every woman or every man, so I don't want to make generalizations, but we'll speak on things we've seen repeat themselves time and time again. One of the first things we'll look at is the recognition women get for their art over what men get. While both men and women have received praise for innovation, creativity, and challenging norms, women are the only ones subjected to certain ideas. Many will state a woman only has good music because of her male producers, and without them, that woman would never have a plentiful career. Others will say at times, women are purely orchestrated by a creative team and have no input in what they actually do. While that could stand to be the case for certain artists, male or female, this type of claim is specifically saved for the female artist. Why is it that we constantly find ways to discredit a female artist's success by stating it is because of another person in the industry, not of the artist themselves? This goes into my next point about reinvention. We've come to understand that generally speaking, it is the female star who will reinvent themselves 100 times throughout their career with a brand new image. It may also be their music, costuming, or overall aesthetic they choose. Male artists, on the other hand, seem to remain relatively consistent with their sound, image, and how they present themselves on stage. Of course, this is not an absolute, but just an observation. Unfortunately, we may not have a clear-cut answer like we'd prefer. We know that throughout the decades, with artists such as Cher, Madonna, and Janet Jackson, we've seen a variety of shifts in approach to artistry. It begs the question, were labels solely behind pushing a rebranding for female artists every era? Thus, it became expected and commonplace. Did these women realize from the get-go they'd have to work twice as hard, thus took it upon themselves to prove their capability? We've established that plenty of people will discredit a woman's work to their creative team or producer. So could it be that women are so engaged in their reinvention in order to prove their own talent and what they're capable of? I think that this perhaps could tie into the idea that as a performer and artist, you are at the mercy of those who consume your art. Historically, women have been at the hands of others with expectations placed upon them. It could be worth exploring that perhaps this inherent desire to have a say in what a woman does correlates to their want and or need to constantly reinvent themselves. This may explain why so many people are quick to note when a female artist has not evolved as significantly as their peers, and why male artists can remain relatively unchanged and not be met with the same type of observation or critique. It could also tie into pandering to your audience, operating under the notion that women reinvent themselves to maintain relevancy and that it is expected of them because they are women and performers subject to audience demands. The moment a female artist shifts into a sound, image, or idea that audiences or critics don't like or do not find preferable, their career will suffer harm. That can be irreparable, and audiences will demand they go back to what works. Yes, it creates this dichotomy where the female artist has to evolve, but not in a way that's too foreign, but also in a way that is comfortable and attainable for those who consume their work. Is it as simple of a conclusion as this is rooted in misogyny and the expectation that women should be able to be malleable to what we want and what we desire? I can't say, to be honest. Female artists also evolve when it comes to riding high off the success of a previous era, or entering a new change of life, whether it be motherhood or overcoming adversity. It seems at times there has to be justification for this shift in image and sound for it to be warranted. And if the female artist decides to experiment for the sake of it, or evolves in a way that doesn't seem to have purpose in the eye of the audience, then that change is rejected outright. We can't go without mentioning sexuality or lyrical content. We're all familiar with female artists being glammed up and weaving sexual themes within their music, and of course, there's nothing wrong with that. This, intentionally or not, sets a standard for how women in pop music need to be, since it eventually just becomes commonplace. I think societally, there's this expectation that sex sells, thus it's the most efficient route to gain traction. However, if a woman changes her approach to not fit this mold, they lose their interest. Or sexuality becomes their image and they're seen as one note. Or people will state how the over-sexuality is a bad influence. Yet, is it not the responsibility of the parent or the listener to pick and choose what they engage with or will allow their children to consume? Artists are not inherently role models. They choose to be or they choose not to be. But of course, I still think there remains influence in their work regardless because of their status. However, the opposite also applies. If a female artist is not sexualized or sensual with her approach and chooses to embrace her body or identity, audiences can react negatively and find it within bad taste or promiscuous. We know that men have always sung objectively about women or their conquest. While this isn't the entire identity of male-led music by any means, we know it's fairly common that the game of cat and mouse appears within men's music, as does sex. It is seen as acceptable for men to write music about pursuing women, regardless of the connotations. It is seen acceptable for men to write about women however they want. If a woman is objective or sexual about a man or her own body and it's not for the service of others, it is regarded as offensive or in bad taste. But if a woman writes dreamy, fantastical songs about love, that is more acceptable than being brash or blunt about their partner. With that, it appears that women's sexuality is held at the grips of men in most instances. Are women expected to adhere only to a man's fantasy and service? The moment a woman can show their independence and sexual liberation, it is frowned upon. My last point will be about drama that pops up in the headlines. I feel that whatever a woman is embroiled in, it will be brought up constantly and always discussed. They have to apologize. Of course, if they're at fault for something, then there isn't an issue. But we've seen how many times male artists have created conflict or issues for female artists. Are the men expected to apologize and make reconciliation? At times, but the female artist will be the one to suffer career harm and turmoil through media publications. They will have to be the one who has to rise above and become stronger. It's almost like this all boils down to how many obstacles can we purposely throw at a woman to show audiences just how strong and brave she is. It all at times can feel very orchestrated. In the end, I think a lot of problems the female artists face are the ones they've been cornered into, yet have no obvious escapable routes. There are also issues they've been pressured into, which creates issues that have no clear resolution. If it is pushed for female artists to be sexual, the moment they stop, they are not held to the same value. But it also creates the same pitfall that if they're being too sexual, then inherently they are not good role models and their sexuality debases their talent. The female artists will create immense spectacle and carefully thought out brandings for their eras in order to prove their own talent, yet still be critiqued as inauthentic. However, the moment they strip it down, the demand for a fully realized concept is pulled back into conversation. Their ability can be minimized with the distraction of a frivolous image, but isn't seen as enough if they go for a more minimalist approach. Women are encouraged to be sexually liberated with their lyricism, but when they do, they're seen as vulgar. Artists are told to write about their experiences, but women are discredited when they speak about their past relationships. If an instance of drama happens, the female artist will be the one expected to answer to it and rationalize or apologize for it. And regardless if they do or don't, the public will decide whether they deserve forgiveness or not. Overall, I think it's pretty evident that societally and professionally, there are expectations held onto female artists, and these two entities are the one who directly and indirectly control the future of these female artists' careers. Every artist is someone new and shiny until they reach some type of unforeseeable pitfall that the audiences or executives don't approve of, and it can lead to career damage that is irreversible. And no, this doesn't entirely give us the reason on why these double standards for female artists exist. However, it can bring more light to the painfully obvious, and sometimes overlooked circumstances these artists have to and will continually battle. We could say that because of a woman's place in society, historically and socially, these values and ideas have become ingrained within so many inner workings of careers that these expectations still exist within a different form. We may also be able to attribute these things to simply misogyny, and while that may be the case for why these tendencies do exist, and we could even say that it's the seed for all of this, is that truly the big underlying reasoning? What female artists have you seen that have really gone through something just because they're a woman? And why do you think these double standards still exist? And what solutions do you think we could come up with to fight against them? Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to get more future content on all your favorite pop stars. If you'd like to help decide future video topics, get shoutouts, and special name and comment badges, then I'd love to have you join my channel membership. Thanks for watching.